Hey, Tom. So I thought I'd ask you the question today about, is the dollar going to zero, the US dollar, and how fast? And of course, no one really knows, but we get a lot of people coming into the store and saying, give me some silver, the dollar's going to zero, I want some silver.
Yeah, and on that note, I guess the theme is good reasons to buy silver. Look, there are plenty of good reasons to buy precious metals. You don't need bad reasons or reasons that aren't really legitimate. And the dollar going to zero, in my opinion, is one of those illegitimate reasons to buy.
Mhm.
You should still buy, but you should adjust your reasoning, in my opinion. And here's why. The whole concept of the dollar going to zero comes out of the idea. I mean, you've heard it, right? The whole idea. How many times, I think you wrote it in your book about the Federal Reserve has lost, the dollar itself, since the Federal Reserve came into existence, has lost 98% of its purchasing power, right? You've heard that, right?
Yeah.
All right. But over what time period? It's been 100 years. Now, anybody who knows anything about currency knows that it debases and devalues. We can talk about why that is another time. But it does. So knowing that, obviously currency over 100 years is going to devalue.
Yeah.
That's not relevant to today. If you get a paycheck on Friday and it's $500, you have $500 in purchasing power on Saturday and Sunday and Monday. Inflation isn't at such a pace. Like, we're not, dealing with in Zimbabwe or Argentina or right, Venezuela level inflation here. We're just dealing with ordinary everyday inflation, garden variety inflation. Well, it's higher than that now, but it's still, even like, I believe inflation is probably 20 to 25% for fun. But even at that, how much is that on a daily rate? It's just a fraction, right? So now over time, if you have currency and you're concerned about it losing value over time, yeah, that's a really good reason to buy silver. I mean, we see people, and gold, that we see people coming in that have held it for 10, 20, 30 years, and oftentimes they have the receipts, how much they paid for it, so you can see the gap between what they paid back then and what they get now in terms of dollars. So it really shows how gold and silver track inflation at least a lot better than most assets do. So
yeah,
I mean, how many people do you think out of 10 do you think express that concern to you? The dollar going to zero. What percentage you figure?
Oh, quite a few, maybe 15, 20%.
Yeah, and that's the ones that are saying something about it, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people are holding that view, and I just think it's an illegitimate reason. Yes, and you could say, well, what difference does it make, Tom, as long as they're buying silver? Yeah, if I was a greedy store owner and I just had an agenda to sell it for whatever reason, that would be fine, but I'm not, and neither are you. So we want people to buy and understand why they're doing it, because you and I both believe the more educated people are and the more accurate their foundational understanding of this is, the more they buy. For real,
Yeah.
people buy more. The more I understood it, the more I bought it. And so it's kind of self-fulfilling agenda to have people more educated, I guess, but then everybody benefits. If people buy for the right reasons, I think everybody benefits, us and them, and that's the whole point. It's supposed to be a relationship.
For sure.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the fact that it was about 3% of the people would buy silver, and now it's at 0.5%. It's gone down. So really, there's not that many people that possess silver.
No. Yeah, historically, 1 in 50 people, which is still a low number, but 1 in 50 people were bullion owners, buyers, investors. Now it's 1 in 200. That's how far it's slipped. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But silver, for example, the silver market is a market that really big players can't play in. Like the big, huge top 10 corporations in the world can't play in this market. It's too big. They could own it outright. Like, you can't play in a market, or there's no reason to play in a market that you can own. So it's a very small market.
Yeah. I think you'd said Facebook could own all of the physical silver that's out there. Is it Apple?
Apple could buy the silver industry every year 5 times over. So Apple obviously can't be a player in it. the silver market, the physical silver market is really the domain of the working and middle class. Always has been. They've often called it poor man's money, and gold is rich man's money. Now, those are arbitrary distinctions, rich versus poor, but I mean, the unit cost of silver is a lot lower, so it's more attractive to people that have less money that want to buy on a regular basis. Like, how discouraging would it be if you only had $50 a week of disposable income to invest in metals and have to save up for how long? How many weeks would you have to save up to buy a 1 ounce gold bar? Or you'd be stuck buying fractional gold and you'd still have to save to buy even the smallest piece of fractional. But if you have $50, you can buy an ounce of silver. And you can incrementally, dollar cost average your way in to a pretty decent stack. How many people have you've worked the counter more than me. How many small buyers have you seen that you've talked to and, were shocked at how much they'd accumulated over time when you're not really, paying attention? Like, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a lot of small buyers who just buy small increments every week or every 2 weeks. And at the end of the year, they're like, yeah, I got like 100 ounces. Or whatever. You're way ahead of the game. You're way ahead of others. So
yeah, and because I mean, most people are just in debt. What's the stats now on? It's like $1. Like the average Canadian owes $1.83 for every dollar in asset value they have. That's terrible. I mean, if you were to start out when you were 14 or 15 years old in your first part-time job, buying a little bit of precious metals and with your and any disposable income that you didn't need, you'd be. Yeah, well, we know where that conversation is going. Over time, you'd have some real wealth. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're not even encouraged to save anymore. So there goes that.
No, we're not. Yeah. In more ways than one. We only have 3 days supply of groceries apparently in our pantry, and we used to have a whole year's worth. So
yeah, that's another issue, right? We don't prepare, we don't plan ahead anymore. We seem to be constantly dealing with like whatever emergency is right in front of us, and it just becomes a way of life, right? Dealing with emergencies instead of planning for the future. So yeah, you have to make some minimal planning for the future. You'll always be trapped, and one of the ways you can do that is just take a little bit of that excess income you have and just start accumulating some metals. It's I mean, you can't accumulate land that way. Go try to buy a square inch or a square foot of land and then try to buy the square foot beside it later on. It just doesn't work that way. So smaller buyers, this is a great way to accumulate assets. You say, yeah, but you could buy stocks and bonds and things like that. Yeah, you can incrementally buy them too, but that's a topic for another rabbit hole discussion, is the difference between doing that and doing this. I mean, to me, there's no comparison. You have a real asset this way. When you're investing in a stock, it's a promise of something. Again, it's a piece of paper. So in my mind, they're not the same thing. They don't equate.
yeah. Yeah, so just the dollar, rushing to zero is not, you hear so much of it out there. So it's not a good reason to rush in and buy silver. I mean, there's many good reasons to buy silver.
Absolutely. And just on that note, I mean, if we wanted to be, those guys, those people, the people that just are constantly terrorizing, you got to buy lots, fear mongering people. Just not like, if you fear monger people into a position, you're always going to be dealing with their issues later on, because again, the foundation's broken. You fear monger people into it, they're gonna make reactionary decisions. I mean, fear and concern, to me, we were talking about this last night, and I said the difference between fear and concern is fear is imminent and concern is long-term. We should begin with concern. If you're looking down the road and forward thinking, you don't have to be fearful and reactionary. You can just have a concern. A lot of things are concerning that would be, terrifying if they were imminent. But if you plan ahead, and this is just one way to plan ahead, knowing that currency is going to devalue and everything that you save in dollars is going to be subject to that, this is one way to take steps against it. And if you didn't know anything else, that one thing would hold you in a lot better stead than where most of you are right now, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, I think we can end it on that. It's a good high note to end it on.
Sure.
Thanks for your time, folks. Have a great day.